What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. Hope you guys have been enjoying the NBA playoffs. We just wrapped up the NBA Finals, and we have a new champion, the Denver Nuggets, first-time NBA champion. It took them 47 years to get to the finals, and when they got to the finals and got an opportunity to play the 8th seed in the Miami Heat, they cashed in on the opportunity, and they got the gentleman's sweep, beating Miami in 5 games. And I'm going to talk about this series from the perspective of both teams, but I first want to start with the Denver Nuggets and the champs. And I want to talk about a bunch of different players for the Nuggets because this team was put together really well. And I think a lot of guys on the Nuggets in particular had a lot at stake entering these finals. And let's just start out with Nikola Jokic, the guy who just won the Finals MVP, Finals MVP, two-time regular season MVP, Finals MVP, and he's only 28 years old. And who's to say he's not going to continue to get better? And the Nuggets, they may have another championship in them. But when you look at what this meant for Nikola Jokic, he was viewed as a guy who couldn't back up his regular season greatness in the playoffs. Even though the numbers may have been there, the Nuggets as a team did not have success in the postseason, other than the year they went to the conference finals in the bubble, because that was sort of unexpected. They ran into the Clippers second round. They had to come back from down 3-1 to finish that off. And when you just watch Jokic's game, no, he doesn't look like the prototypical basketball player, not even the prototypical athlete, but the guy just goes on the floor and produces every single night. And teams throw all sorts of different defensive schemes at him, different individual matchups to try and throw him off one-on-one. And even though guys can get physical with him, it just seems like he always finds a way to impact the game, whether it be scoring, it be passing. And I just think he proved a lot this postseason. Starting with the Timberwolves. They beat the Timberwolves in 5. They beat the Nuggets in 6. They sweep the Lakers. And then he puts up 30, 14, and 7 in the finals to capture Finals MVP. And it was just an incredible run from Nikola Jokic, who is proving to be clearly one of the greatest big men to ever play the game. I think I already said it, best passing big man of all time. And so he definitely proved a lot this postseason. And then when you look at his Robin, his right-hand man, Jamal Murray, remember before the 2021 playoffs, Jamal Murray tore his ACL in a regular season game against the Warriors. Literally, I think it was maybe 15, 20 games before the playoffs. He was just coming off an amazing postseason performance in the bubble, and he had to miss the last 2 postseasons because of his injury. That year in 2021, they beat the Blazers, and then they ended up getting bounced in the second round. And then the next year, they lost to the Warriors. I believe it was a gentleman's sweep. I think the Nuggets got 1 game. I believe they either won game 3 or 4, but either way, you could tell that he was definitely a big piece that was missing for the Nuggets over the last 2 years, because he is the guy who can go shot for shot with some of the best in the league, get his own shot, hit very difficult shots. And I think what he proved throughout his postseason run is that, one, shot creating does matter in the playoffs. You need a guy who can just get you a bucket when the defense is so locked in. They know what you're going to do. Other people say this too, but it's just so important to have on a team that aspires to win a championship. You saw it with Jamal Murray this year. You saw it with Steph Curry, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins. Those are all guys that can create, and that's how the Warriors won. You saw it with Chris Middleton for the Bucks in 2021. You just have to have a guy you can give the ball to and say, go get us a shot, go create a shot, go in the mid-range and get a very tough bucket that the defense can't stop just because of your shot-making ability. So he proved a lot in terms of how good he is in the playoffs. And you look at his stats, they're not exactly eye-popping. He hasn't made an all-star team. So a lot of people probably didn't really know much about Jamal Murray entering these playoffs. But people definitely will recognize him as one of the best scoring guards in today's league. And he proved, like I just said, he proved a ton throughout these playoffs. And so huge props to Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon, another guy who was a high lottery pick coming out of college. I believe it was U of A, Arizona. And he was basically known as the guy who got robbed in the dunk contest twice to Zach LaVine. Nothing was going on in Orlando. His teams were never really good. He was the number 1 option. Took the Magic to the playoffs twice. Lost in 5 to the Raptors one year. Lost in 5 to the Bucks another year. And the Magic decide to flip the switch, go into a rebuild. Aaron Gordon gets traded to Denver, and it's a completely new situation for him because he's clearly not going to be the number one option, and he's going to have to buy into a system where he's now a role player. And he definitely did that really the second he stepped foot in Denver, really not just this season, because he clearly wanted to go to a team where he could win. And he bought into a winning formula. He hit big shots throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Nuggets fans are going to remember his game 4 of this series, those 27 points. And those 27 points were huge, especially when Nikola Jokic got into foul trouble, because Nikola Jokic gets into foul trouble. Jimmy and Bam are having a great game, but Denver keeps the lead at around 9 or 10, and then Jokic comes back in the game and they finish it off. And that's really a big credit to Aaron Gordon, who knew his role, bought into a system, and that really impresses me. A guy who was a number one option on a team, knows there's a ceiling, he goes somewhere, takes a lesser role to win, and it works out for him. It's just a great thing, a great lesson for like young basketball players who are trying to figure out their role in the NBA, how they can succeed in the pros. And Aaron Gordon he showed me a lot these playoffs, so I was really impressed with how he played. Bruce Brown, another guy who came into the league drafted by the Pistons, he was talking about in the post-game interview tonight about how much he had to work to get to where he is and how much he had to work to improve mainly his shooting, because he said he was the guy that teams would just leave wide open and he didn't like being disrespected like that. So he got into the gym, worked really hard, improved his game, and played a pivotal role in the Nuggets capturing the championship. He was a good player, a good role player, I thought, on the Nets. He definitely gave teams some trouble when he would sort of run the pick and roll with KD, and he would mainly be the guy that's rolling, shooting floaters in the paint, kind of like a very undersized center. I think undersized is an understatement because he's only around 6'4", and he would be getting a majority of his baskets around the paint. But he found a new role with the Nuggets. They let him create a little bit more. He was able to hit big shots all around the floor throughout the playoffs, and he was just phenomenal. So, and then KCP, another guy who came into the Denver situation already a champion. He was the only player on the roster who already had a championship ring, and so of course he already brought that championship pedigree to the Nuggets. And really the Nuggets just had a very complete team, and I'm not really surprised that they won. I guess I am a little bit, because they hadn't shown before that they would be able to go deep into the playoffs consistently. But with this roster, with the talent, Jokic, Murray, if they keep this together, Michael Malone, an incredible coach, they could repeat. Like, we really ask this every time a team wins a championship, can they repeat? But with the way the West is looking, I just don't see a team that stacks up to them right now. The Warriors are in salary cap hell. They don't know what they're doing with Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. Bob Myers is on the way out, so they're going to have some new management. The Lakers, LeBron is getting old. He's talking about maybe retiring. You never know what you're going to get from Anthony Davis. Are they going to give a fortune to keep Austin Reeves? I don't know. The Suns have zero depth. Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, we know they're a duo that works together, but what are the Suns going to do to surround them with talent? CP3 is going to be on the way out. DeAndre Ayton's likely getting traded. Who else? You look at New Orleans. You don't know whether or not Zion Williamson's going to be healthy. The Clippers are always the biggest what if in the NBA. If Kawhi Leonard and Paul George can just be on the court at the same time, what could they do? And so there's so many question marks in the West, except for the Nuggets. I look at the Nuggets and I'm like, I don't really see any flaws at all with this team, with the roster, the way it's built, the way they go about themselves, how they handle their business on the court, no drama. I don't really see a team right now, as I'm recording this video, that can beat them next year. Of course, the main thing that I think could stop them from repeating is it's just too damn hard to repeat unless you're a super team like the Warriors were. It's hard to win back-to-back championships, so that's the only way I could see them not winning, or unless injuries have always been dictating who's been winning the finals. If, God forbid, someone on the Nuggets gets hurt, that could stop them. But if they're healthy, I don't really see a team that can match up with them in terms of their offensive firepower. And the Nuggets can play defense too. They won these finals. If you watch this closeout game, it was a scrappy game. They were stopping the Miami Heat. And so let's switch it to the Miami Heat. So great postseason run for the Heat. Entered the playoffs as the 8th seed. Barely made the playoffs. Found themselves down 90-87 with under 3 minutes remaining against the Chicago Bulls in their second playoff game. Play-in game. Keep in mind they dropped the first play-in game to the Hawks, so they were in a win-or-go-home situation against Chicago. They get that win, enter the first round as the 8th seed, beat the Bucks in round 1, beat the Knicks in round 2 in 6 games, and then nearly blow a 3-0 lead and drop the series against the Celtics, but they hold on, survive that. And I think really there's not much you can say other than that the Heat were simply outmatched in these finals, because from top to bottom, talent and in terms of game plan, the Nuggets were just the better team. The Heat relied too much on the 3 because they don't really have any shot creators outside of Jimmy Butler that you can say, like you can with Jamal Murray, just give him the ball, get out of the way, and go get a tough bucket. They don't really have guys who are like that. Gabe Vincent, maybe a little bit, but not a guy like Jimmy Butler who can just go out and make shots from anywhere on the floor in any given spot. Bam Adebayo, I was saying he was going to be an X factor in these finals for Miami, and he definitely had his moments, but it just wasn't enough to beat Denver. And the Heat role players that had been really carrying them outside of that first round against the Bucks, because if you don't, Jimmy Butler's stats in round 1 against the Bucks were literally insane. It was like 37 points per game on 60% shooting, but throughout the rest of the playoffs, he really wasn't that good. And yes, he did get injured against the Knicks, ankle injury, but there's no excuses when you're at this point in the finals, especially for a guy who's already been to the finals. People are calling you a superstar. You got to show up and play. And Jimmy Butler was just not good enough in these finals. And guys like Max Strus and Duncan Robinson and, like I was talking about before, Gabe Vincent, they just didn't give the Heat enough. Caleb Martin, a guy who was supposed to be Eastern Conference Finals MVP to some people, he completely disappeared in this series. I don't really remember him doing close to literally anything. So Miami just didn't have enough. Jimmy Butler didn't give them enough. And really quickly, I just want to touch on this. This will probably be the last point I make about this series. I don't think I can put Jimmy Butler in that superstar tier. I don't think I can do it because he's been to the finals twice, multiple time All-Star, but I don't think he's going to get the criticism that an actual superstar would get if they had wet the bed in the finals like this. And yes, the Heat were an 8th seed. They weren't supposed to be here. They were probably supposed to win maybe one playoff game at the most, but people are calling him a superstar. He's, like I said, he's already been to the finals. This is his second finals appearance. And so I'm going to judge him like a superstar. If he wants to be a superstar, that's how I'm going to judge him. And I can't put him in that tier because he's not going to get criticized the same way a LeBron James, a Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Giannis, the way those guys would get criticized if they played like this, how they did in the finals, even with an injury. And speaking, like, Giannis was hurt against the Heat. He played 2 full games, and people are still criticizing him for losing to the Heat, even though he barely played in the series. Granted, he was bad in the fourth quarter of Game 5, but that's a whole nother subject. He doesn't get an injury pass. He's too good of a superstar, and I don't think Jimmy Butler's in that tier. And when we have the questions, is Jimmy Butler a Hall of Famer? Maybe, because the Basketball Hall of Fame is super easy to get into. I just don't think you can play that bad the way Jimmy Butler did in the finals, not consistent enough, and be called a superstar. And tonight's game, he was basically a no-show until the fourth quarter, where he kind of picked it up a little bit. So I think if Miami wants to contend next year, they should go after a guy like Damian Lillard or a guy like Fred VanVleet, who's going to hit the free agent market because he opted out of his option. They need another shot creator who's even better than Jimmy Butler, who's even more versatile than Jimmy Butler when it comes to getting to different spots and hitting shots with different degrees of difficulty, because I think the Heat clearly have a ceiling when it comes to scoring. If you were to tell someone who didn't watch any of these teams, they would say, why did the Nuggets beat the Heat in the finals? You would tell them the Nuggets simply had more guys who could score consistently in a variety of different ways than the Heat did. Because once Miami's 3-ball isn't falling, they're kind of lost on offense. It's kind of just Jimmy carry us to the finish line time. And when teams can key in on Jimmy Butler and they don't have to respect Miami's 3-point shooters, a bunch of undrafted guys who can't really create their own shots, they're easy to stop. And that's what the Nuggets did in this series. And so that's going to be it for this video. Just a quick little video on my thoughts on the NBA Finals. Let me know what your guys' thoughts were on these finals. Where do you put Nikola Jokic all time? Is Jimmy Butler a superstar / Hall of Famer? Let me know. Let me know who you guys think is going to win the championship next season. What are you guys most excited for in the NBA offseason? That is it for this video. Make sure to find the rest of my content linked in the description. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching.